What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy 2023. I'm so excited to be kicking off this year strong. I'm actually out in Phoenix, Arizona. It's hard to believe that it's winter anywhere right now. But today, we're going to be talking about something really important. We have the amazing, the incredible Dr. Elizabeth Lombardo, and she's going to be talking about this thing that comes up a lot with the parents that I am talking to every week and the kids that we work with in our program. And it's knowing when to jump in and rescue your child when they're going through difficult things and towing that balance of when it is good for them to be able to fail a little bit, to experience a little bit of discomfort so that they can actually handle obstacles and roadblocks and adversity when they hit them in the real world, because that's how life works. And unfortunately, or fortunately, mom and dad aren't always going to be there to rescue them. But it's a tough balance. And to be honest, from a lot of the conversations I have in today's world, it seems like there's the old way, which is, hey, I don't care if you got knocked over and hit by a car, walk it off. And that's usually a lot of the dad's perspectives. And then on the flip side, there can be kind of the new way, which is, it tends to be, not always, but a lot of times the mom who want to jump in there and rescue their teen, which is the best of intentions. Their heart is absolutely in the right place. You don't want to see your kids suffer. You don't want to see them go through hardships. You want them to have an easier and better life than you had growing up. I think all parents want that. But the thing is, sometimes the very best thing for them is to be a little bit uncomfortable, to be a little bit out of that zone of their comfort where they're out there and they're like, okay, and they see that, hey, it's okay, I can overcome this. Hey, if someone's mean to me, it's not the end of the world. I don't need to go to extremes to handle the situation. So I've already talked too much. Let's roll this video. It's about 20 minutes, and then we'll have Dr. E, and you guys will be able to ask all your questions live to her. So let's start the video.
Hi there, it's Dr. Elizabeth Lombardo, or Dr. E as my clients like to call me. I'm a clinical psychologist, master coach, parent of 2 teens, and founder of Elevive. Elevive, where our tagline is elevate your mindset, thrive in life. At Elevive, we help teens and parents of teens learn the skills to better control stress, be even more emotionally intelligent, and cultivate stronger, healthy self-confidence. Now, today we will be exploring the notion of jumping in versus fostering independence. The concept that on one hand, you're helping your child avoid failure, and on the other, you are encouraging self-reliance. Here's the deal. You love your child. Of that, there is no doubt. And yet sometimes intentions are drastically different from outcomes. Consider the research that consistently demonstrates that parents who do not cultivate independence in their adolescence and instead withhold that tend to suffer from lower self-esteem, are less self-regulated, tend to act out more, score lower in academic achievement, experience more mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and antisocial behavior, and they tend to, in the long term, struggle more with relationships and education. Now, on the opposite side of that, when we foster independence in our adolescents are more likely to learn new skills and test new abilities. They're more likely to have stronger self-confidence, build resilience, be successful in academics and life, enjoy better mental health, and have healthier relationships, just to name a few of the benefits. Now, I know you want all of those benefits for your child. And when you consider that the teen years are really about going from being completely dependent on caregivers to being an independent adult, this is what adolescence is about. Transition is not an overnight occurrence. It requires that parents provide more and more independence as your children mature and develop a stronger sense of responsibility. Now, you may be saying to yourself, of course I want my child to be independent. I also want them to be successful. Well, ask yourself if you can relate to any of the following and be honest with yourself, right? No one knows the answers that you will be giving. Here's your pop quiz. Do you ever tell your teen what they should do? Not allow your child to participate in your decisions. Not let your child make their own decisions. Not encourage choice or independence. Dictate most aspects of your child's life. Quote, help your child without being asked. Jump into doing something for your teen that they could do themselves. Put more stress on you so your child has less stress. Wonder if you should let your child do more. Take steps to intervene to help you worry less, or spend time that, let's face it, you don't really have to make your child's life easier. Now, these are all signs that you might be jumping in too quickly or too frequently. Now, before you get upset about this assessment, please hear me say there is no judgment here. Instead, it's an opportunity to see how your incredible love for your child may not be directed in the most beneficial way. So how can you foster independence in your children, in your adolescents, without causing you excessive stress and in ways that best help your child? Well, I have created the lucky 13 tips to foster independence in your teen. So let's get started. Number 1, consider what I call Goldilocks syndrome. Goldilocks syndrome. Remember good old Goldilocks? She went into the bear's house. She tried numerous things. The porridge was either too hot, too cold, or just right, right? The chair was too hard, too soft, or just right. Well, just like Goldilocks taught us, extremes are not usually beneficial. So instead, we want to find a happy medium. When it comes to fostering independence in your children, giving them too much leeway is associated with more behavioral and mental health issues. Giving them too little dependence can result in them feeling helpless, giving up easily, and having problems engaging in even basic interactions or activities. Instead, it's important to provide a moderate amount of independence, which increases as your child matures and becomes even more responsible. Independence is not an all or nothing event. The goal is to foster independence in a way that is best for your child. 2, redefine failure. Change your definition of failure. As we said, adolescence is a time of gaining independence, of going from being completely dependent to an independent young person. As such, it is vital that we as parents provide our children with the opportunities to cultivate healthy independence. And with that healthy independence comes making mistakes and not doing things perfectly. Remember when you taught your child how to ride their bike or how to read and spell? Of course, they didn't do it perfectly right away. It took some falls or mistakes or unsuccessful attempts in order to gain those skills. And yet these, quote, failures were exactly what allowed them to eventually succeed. Your child not performing perfectly does not mean failure. It means they are learning. So help them learn from their outcome. I have a saying, it's not failure, it's data. And by data, I mean information. If your child gets an outcome that they don't want, help them use that data or information to figure out why it happened and what they can do now and in the future to learn from this experience. Specifically, help them explore the following questions. What were the ingredients to this outcome? What can you learn from this experience that can help you now and in the future? Are there skills that would be helpful to develop more so that moving forward, you can be more successful? Another component of changing your definition of failure has to do with parenting. You know, often parents feel like they failed as parents when their children makes a mistake or engages in an undesirable behavior. But keep in mind, adolescence is a time of trying new things, of testing the boundaries. It's your child's job, right? It's your child's job to test the boundaries, to try new things. And it's your job to help them learn from those experiences. If your child makes a mistake or engages in undesirable behavior, that is a great opportunity. Sorry, not sure what happened there. That's a great opportunity to learn and to grow. It is not an indication that you failed as a parent. Next, number 3, applaud effort over outcome. One thing I see a lot in my private practice is perfectionism, the concept that things need to be perfect in order to be successful. Perfectionism is actually a fear of failure. I'm going to say that again. It's so good. Perfectionism is actually a fear of failure. Some kids are so locked into a fear of failure that they're not even going to try. So imagine how this might play out in the real world, the place where your child really needs to take risks, whether it's applying for colleges, interviewing for jobs, bidding for their first home. They'll need to prepare for disappointment and poised to learn from it. To help your kids overcome this when they're independent adults, focus on the quality of their efforts while they're still under your roof. So if your child studied hard for their biology test and still got a C, it's the hard work that they put into it that counts. And then apply the "it's not failure, it's data" motto and help them learn from this. Right? We can also focus efforts on encouraging children to try new things, to get out of their comfort zone and be creative, all to foster their sense of independence without the pressure to succeed or be perfect. Encouragement is never about the results. Instead, embrace the process. 4, before you step in, ask yourself the following questions. 1, am I doing this for my child or for me? If you are being completely honest with yourself, are there times when you do things for your children, not just because you care about them, but also because it helps you feel good? Maybe you're like me, where your love language is acts of service. Or maybe you don't want your child to mess up because you would feel like you're not being a good parent. Determine if this is more for you than it is for your child. Secondly, ask yourself, what is the ultimate goal I want to achieve? So for example, if you want your child to do well in school, why? Is it so that they'll be successful in life? So when you consider that grades are not, I'm going to say that again, grades are not a predictor of future success, but skills like resiliency and emotional regulation are, this can help you take a step back from emailing their teacher about a less than stellar grade and instead problem solve with your child regarding the best next steps. Question 3, how stressed am I right now? When we're in that red zone, remember that psychological red zone, the high levels of stress, we tend to feel more fear, such as thinking the worst case scenario, and personalizing things like a child not being perfect is a reflection of poor parenting. As such, it's really important to address your own worry and stress so that you can see things more rationally. Doing so will also be a great modeling for your child. And if you want more information on how to get out of the psychological red zone, check out my training on this topic at Elevive.com in the parent resources section. The 4th question you want to ask yourself is you want to determine your role. Ask yourself, what is my role here? Decide who actually owns the problem before forcing parental involvement. And specifically, you want to explore the following questions. Can anyone get hurt? Are any rights being disrespected? Is anyone's property threatened? Is my teen unable to take this responsibility on? Now, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then both the parent and the teen own the problem. And so you want to join together in problem solving and monitoring. If the answer to each question is no, then the teen would own the problem and be allowed the independence to make a decision regardless of a potentially natural consequence occurring. Tip 5, assess your teen's readiness. Assess your teen's readiness. Each child is unique, and we want to consider their uniqueness when offering independence. Becoming truly independent is really a complex process, but there are several skills and characteristics that are good indicators that your teen's ready. So some of things that you want to evaluate include, can your child keep track of time? Can your child truly keep track of time? Sure, they can tell the time, but can they keep track of time? This skill will impact everything from keeping a doctor's appointment to showing up for a job interview on time to turning in a paper in school. Another thing to consider, how impulsive is your child? Right? For teens who act before they think, numerous tasks of adulthood are challenging. How does your child behave if another driver cuts them off in front of the road? Or can your teen keep their cool if the child they're babysitting pushes their limits? And then ask yourself, how does your teen behave in emergencies? So if they're home alone and there's an earthquake or a fire, would they be able to cope? And as you begin to answer these questions, you'll be able to make decisions about how much independence is appropriate and what skills still need to be taught. And keep in mind, being responsible is a skill that can be taught. Tip 6, take time to teach. Don't worry, you don't have to teach algebra or calculus, but take time to teach. When we overly assist our children, we are inadvertently teaching them helplessness, right? Our children will often, quote, learn the message that they can't handle these situations. And that's certainly not the message that we want to be sending. You want to teach different types of independence. So for example, being independent at home, that may entail learning to cook, clean, or do their laundry. Managing their time, that will include being responsible for their work and study. Teaching the independence of being confident in the outside world, meeting new people, dealing with new situations, money management, and then teaching independence by looking out for themselves and their friends. That includes being responsible when out and about. Now, while some of these skills are often taken for granted by adults, like having a conversation with an adult, they are essential skills for your child to learn. As Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." So teach your children these skills and let them get involved in applying them. Tip 7, embrace the struggle. If your child is really being harassed, or if there's a problem that you believe needs intervention, then of course you step in. But most problems are not like that. So work hard to make sure that you're not intervening inappropriately. We often rob our children the opportunity to learn to fix a problem because we don't want them to struggle. And yet, as we all know, everyone faces disappointment. Sometimes we just don't get what we want, and learning to deal with that reality is absolutely vital for your child's success now and in the future. Now, don't get me wrong, it can be hard as a parent, right? You want to take the pain away from your child that they might be feeling. But before you do, think long term, right? What's going to happen next time around? Will your fixing it really help them learn how to deal with it? In its extreme case, suicide rates are increasing for college students. And a big reason for this is because they're going from being protected by their parents in high school to being completely independent once they go to college. That drastic shift can be overwhelming for some. Cultivate independence today so your child learns how to solve problems by themselves today and tomorrow. Tip 8, monitor their behavior. Monitor their behavior. Monitoring does not mean being intrusive in the lives of your teens, but rather knowing where they are and what they are doing. Teens who are monitored by parents and who have a loving parental relationship are more likely to adopt parental values and make healthy life choices. Tip 9, pick your battles carefully. Parents may ask themselves, is arguing about my teen's clothing or messy room as important as telling them how I feel about the use of alcohol or drugs? Less fighting means more time for talking, teaching, and ensuring healthy independence. Tip 10, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. Stop equating doing things for your child as an act of love, and instead realize that fostering independence is actually a gift to give to your child. Tip 11, set clear boundaries. Part of helping your teen to become independent involves establishing and clearly communicating boundaries about their behavior so that you both know what's expected and allowed. Your teen then has the chance to explore and discover things for themselves while also feeling safe and cared for. Now, boundaries are going to be different for different situations and should evolve as your teen grows older. Here are some areas where boundaries can be helpful. Going out with friends. What can they do and how late can they stay out? Contacting you while they're out. When and how often should they check in? Using social media and devices. What platforms are okay? And any device-free times. Tip 12, cultivate problem solving and decision-making skills. Now, this is huge. Teaching your teen how to make decisions effectively is a big step to preparing them for independence. If you allow them to work things out for themselves, they'll become more able to identify and solve problems. They'll also gain skills in rational thinking and listening, and will develop the ability to prioritize and compromise. So encourage them to stay calm, listen, and think things through. Get them to brainstorm a wide range of possible outcomes. Have them write down pros and cons so they can see if it's worth it. And support them in listening to their instincts and trusting what they feel inside. So here are some basic concepts to teach your child to help foster independence. One, find out different options. So let's say, for example, they're looking at school electives. They might consider music, coding, psychology, art. Second, talk about the pros and cons of each different option. For example, if your child finds music and art relaxing, but is interested in studying IT in college. Third, weigh out the pros and cons to help them make the best decision. For example, ask them, is it better to relax by studying music or build skills for further studying by coding? 4, brainstorm what to do if things don't go according to plan. For example, your child might be able to make a late change to their electives. And then 5, give your child feedback on how they handle the process. It's particularly good to use these steps for big decisions that affect your child, like decisions about school, further studies, staying out late, and so on. If you can make those decisions with your child rather than for your child is more likely to stick with whatever you've decided, and they learn those skills that they can use in the future. You can also include your child in family decision-making, like what to do for vacation or whether to buy a pet. This sends the message that you value your child's input, which can be good for your child's self-esteem. And tip 13, make sure independence and responsibility go hand in hand, right? Help your child understand that responsibility is really key to their independence. By demonstrating responsibility, they can gain more independence and freedom. This will help them mature into healthy young adults, while at the same time help you see the benefits of helping them foster their independence. Responsible teams are capable of doing the following things: considering possible consequences, their actions, taking ownership of problems, not placing blame, considering the needs and rights of others, acting with integrity, values, and inner discipline, and fulfilling duties, obligations, and promises. The more they do this, the more independence they can be granted. So follow these 13 tips to help foster independence in your children. When you do, they're more likely to flourish into healthy, happy, successful adults, just as you want them to. And if you want more information, go ahead and go over to Elevive.com. Elevate your mindset, thrive in life. We are here to support you and your team develop that independence in a healthy and helpful way.
And we're back. All right. Lindsay.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Beautiful. Look at your weather.
I know. What's going on over there?
Not that. It
People,
is stormy and gray and gross over here.
people keep calling me from all over. It's a storm. And I'm like, oh, just looking around like I would have no idea.
Yep.
Apparently, it's heaven on earth over here in Arizona.
Apparently, it looks gorgeous. It is not that pretty here for sure. I
Are
have
you
a
ready?
happy light in front of me, actually, like one of those happy lights, you know?
Oh, yeah. Hey, sometimes you need a light to make you happy. I love it. I love it. What did you think of that from Dr. E?
I thought it was fantastic as always. Her videos are so great. She does such a great job.
My hands cramping from writing so many notes, my head spinning a little bit. Let's get her in here. I think she's in here right now. The lady, the myth, the legend.
I'm here.
With the infamous bookshelf in the background.
I'm in a new place though.
Yeah.
Now, what is the deal? What's
This
going
is
on
not
here?
my usual office, and I thought you'd be happy to see. Wait, can you see? A fire.
Oh, the fire.
Oh, yes.
That's what you
Okay,
get
I
in
like it.
Chicago that you don't get in Arizona.
Are you just in a different room, or are you relocated?
I saw
What's
clients all day
happening?
today.
Okay.
All day. I had clients, and I usually have an office downstairs in this building. And we had some flooding. So I got to be in the Mac Daddy of offices. I have my own fireplace. I have this beautiful, like even more beautiful setup. So it was good. And of course, no one's in the office on Sunday except for me and my client. So
Well, now we expect a fireplace every time. So you set the bar
I
high.
wish I had one of those in my office at home.
So nice. Well, this was so good. Like, this is, for me, this topic is one that just comes up so much. And I see it, and I'm curious to hear what you think. A lot of times it's the dad. This is what I was saying earlier before you got on. It's the dad who's kind of old school. And it's like, you know what, just be tough, walk it off. There's no such thing as depression. Go do, what you need to do, be,
Pull
the
up
tough.
the bootstraps, right? Pull it
Yeah.
up with the bootstraps, whatever the hell that
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
And that's kind of how, in a lot of ways, I was raised, I would say. And it was with love and all of those great things. And then today it seems like it can kind of err on the other end, where it's literally you can't go outside because the temperature's not right. You're going to get burned from the sun, and the bubble boy, bubble girl syndrome kind of thing. So, and that's that book that we talk about, the coddling of the American mind, right? Of the best of intentions. You want everything to be perfect for your kids, but maybe you're hurting them more than you're helping them. So I thought this was so timely, and it really stood out to me.
Yay. Well, I'm glad. Yeah. And what I really wanted parents to hear is it is out of love that you are doing this. We are not judging. We are not saying what's wrong with you. You're a horrible parent. What we are saying is let's channel that love in a way that's really going to help your children more, even if it may cause you a little discomfort or a little angst. In the long term, it's really going to help your children thrive now and in the future.
Yeah.
Exactly. It made me think of this story I heard the other day, from all people, Dr. Phil. He was talking about when he was a kid. One of the kids from his school came over to hang out when he was I think middle school, junior high age, 13, 14. And his parents were a little bit more on the stricter side. And his friend who came over was like the cool kid. He was the tough, popular athlete. He was the one, all the girls had crushes on and all the guys wanted to be like. And there was some event going on, and I can't remember if it was a sports thing or a concert. And they were hanging out. They're like, hey, we're going to go check out this. We'll say it's a concert because I don't remember. We're going to go check out the concert. And Dr. Phil's mom and dad were like, the heck you are. You're not going there. It's not safe. There's this, that, and the third thing going on. And Dr. Phil remembers being bummed, but then looking over at his buddy, and his buddy was over there, and he was like kind of tearing up, and he didn't know what to do. And he's like, it was kind of awkward. And he didn't say anything. And then later he wanted to know. He's like, I had to ask him. And so he asked him like, hey, what was going on earlier? Is everything okay? And he goes, I wish my parents loved me enough that they would ever not let me go do something because they care or are worried about me. And I thought that was such a powerful, powerful story. And when you were sharing that, I'm like, sometimes you're showing love and you're doing the right thing by not letting kids do something that they want to do, or sometimes letting them fail to a certain degree, feel pain, feel discomfort. and I don't know, it just really touched my heart. So I thought it would be a quick, good one to start us off with here and share. Can you relate to that as a mom and with your own kids?
Yeah, and as a
Mhm.
clinician, absolutely. I mean, there's this concept of I want to be my kid's friend, so I'm going to let them do all the things, all the fun things. And children want to have rules. They want to have boundaries. They want to know that this is okay and this is not. Even if they don't overtly say that, they do. And I'm telling you, on this couch today, I had two kiddos because I had one parent and I think 5 adolescents today, separate times. All of them want to know this is how much freedom I have, and this is where the line is. Our children need to know where the line is. Otherwise, the world feels scary and unknown, and they're going to keep doing things that they don't necessarily want to. And I'll give an example. I have a client, and this was the parent who I saw, whose children, adolescents, yell at her obscenities, call her names, and she lets them do it. She lets them do it because she doesn't know how to control them. How do I control my children? She says. And I will tell you, I've had her kids on this couch, well, not this one, but my one downstairs, and they don't want to act like this. But because they've been given this leeway, it's kind of like, oh, this is how I act when I'm in the red zone. It's okay for me to tell my mother I hate her and that she is, expletive. It's not how they want to act, but given that they've been allowed to do it, they keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. The parents aren't happy, the kids aren't happy, no one's happy. It's setting those boundaries and saying, this is okay, this is not, here are the consequences. Is that tough at first? Yes. Usually you need to do consequences once, maybe twice. Once they learn you're serious, they got it. So yeah, having consequences, having boundaries for our kids, they really do want that.
So if you're a parent and you're in that situation, because I talk to parents every week that like their kids are completely out of control and they like don't respect them, and exactly what you said, they're cussing at them. And I because I'm not a parent, don't always feel like I can be like, well, just, lay down the law and that kind of thing. But if they're in that situation, coming from you, not me, they should, quote unquote, lay down the law, make the rules, and then follow through on them and actually make that happen. And after a couple of times, they're going to figure it out that they can't be permitted to act that way anymore. Is that the path forward? That's
exactly it. And here's the thing. Once you establish the consequences and enforce them, your child will likely act up more. Let's rewind to when your child was 2 or 3. They wanted a piece of candy. You said no. Did they say, oh, okay, no problem? Probably not. They had a temper tantrum. I want a piece of candy. No, I want to be like louder. Eventually they're like, oh, I'm not going to get the candy. In psychology, we call it extinguish. The behavior's gone. But what happens a lot is the child screams and, oh, I'm at the grocery store. I don't want people to think I'm a bad mom. Here's a piece of candy. So then your child learns, oh, if I scream louder, I get it. Fast forward now, 10, 12 years later, when your child's an adolescent, it's going to be the same thing. They may not have a temper tantrum, but they may act up even more initially because they're used to getting their way. If they're acting up initially, stick to your resolve and no, I'm doing this for my child. If they act up, okay, yes, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for you. It's uncomfortable for them. Stick with it. Eventually they're going to know, mom, dad, they mean what they say. And it's not just about being respectful. That's key. It's about all the other rules, because if they learn from you that they don't have to do what you want them to do or what you say, they're going to learn that the laws don't actually pertain to them, or that the rules at school don't actually pertain to them. And then they're going to be even worse consequences.
Yeah. Following through, easier said than done. Because I see these parents, I see them at the grocery store and they're getting pulled 3 different ways by kids and wanting the things, like exhausting, but worth it.
Because it's that short-term discomfort that in the long term is going to be so much better. And realizing when your children, for example, are being disrespectful, I realize this isn't about giving your children independence, but when your children are being disrespectful, and I know we've said this before, but I'm just going to reiterate, it's usually because they're in the red zone, they are stressed out, and they're having intense distress, emotions. So it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to speak to me like that.
Mm,
So we
love
want to
it.
validate emotions. We don't want to say it's not okay to have emotions. This is probably more information than we need, but like I grew up in a household very loving where we didn't believe in negative emotions. So, being sad or frustrated, no, you don't need to be sad or frustrated. Yeah, it's okay to be sad and frustrated. It's okay to be angry. It's all emotions are okay. And it's okay for our kids to know it's all right to be sad. It's all right to be frustrated. It's all right to be angry. Not okay to speak to me in that way. And we've talked before, the importance of modeling. When you lose it with your children, when you say something disrespectful, once you are out of the red zone, probably can't do it when you're in the red zone. Once you are out of that red zone, that when our distress, when it goes from a 7 out of 10 or higher, when you're out of that 7 out of 10 or higher, it is vital you go to your children and say, I was disrespectful. I full-heartedly apologize. I was frustrated. It's okay for me to be frustrated. It is not okay for me to speak to you like that. It's not okay for me to speak to anyone like that. It's not okay for anyone in the family to speak to anyone like that because we respect each other. And when you model that, the next time your child starts being disrespectful, they're going to hear your feedback in a way where they're actually going to apply it. But if you're being disrespectful to your child, it's going to be really hard for them to reciprocate that. In the olden days, that's the way it was, right? Parents could be disrespectful to kids. Kids had to, just take it and, be there or be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
Our kids aren't like that. Our kids are very much, they have a BS meter. And if you are saying one thing and doing another, it's really going to be hard to get them to do what you want them to do.
So parents are humans. They're allowed to be humans. They're allowed to
They're
make
allowed
mistakes.
to mess up. Absolutely. And I will tell you, when I have been disrespectful or unkind to my children, and I come back and say, I am sorry. I was in the red zone. I was stressed out. It does not excuse my behavior towards you. I full-heartedly apologize. My teens respond extremely positively. They will usually say, it's okay. We understand. And they will learn that, yeah, we don't have to be perfect. We do need to work on being respectful.
I feel like a lot of this stuff applies with dogs too. Is it crazy to say that? I've been doing a lot of dog sitting lately, and I'm not giving in negative reinforcement. Just because you whine a little bit, you're not getting the bone. I feel like this is making me a better dog.
There you go. Yeah, it's basic training, behavioral training.
Yeah, I love it. Real quick, for anyone watching, people are throwing a lot of questions, and I have a long list, and I'm excited, Dr. E, because I have some sports psychology questions that came in before this. So, I'm always excited to talk to you about that.
Yes.
And everyone can check out Dr. E if you want to find out more on her and all the different things that she does for parents and for teens at ellavive.com. We'll put it in the chat as we always do. But those questions that you have, send them to us now and we will get to them. And before we jump into those first questions, Lindsay,
Yes.
what do you have to say about jumping in versus fostering independence? Did you have anything? I just saw you sitting there and I could tell a couple of times the wheels were turning.
Well, no, I was listening to, all of that. We weren't necessarily just talking about fostering independence so much. I suppose if you flip it around, any of that teaching attitude changes and respect is fostering independence, because at the end of the day, how many times do we run into adults, right? That can't control. First, that was what I was thinking, is that when we run into other adults that speak to us that way, I don't know about you, but I don't put up with that. I don't have a problem being like, I'm sorry, we're not going to have this conversation. That's not okay. And yet for parents of teens, they don't know what to do, but that's exactly who that teen grows into, right? If it's not corrected, and it has such hugely detrimental impacts on their life later because of relationship building business relationships, building families, having, community, all of that can be detrimentally impacted if they don't learn what is acceptable behavior to and from, and that starts with us, right?
Yeah,
we're like
100%.
and understanding it's okay to not agree with someone who you love. It's okay to have those conversations. We just need to do it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And you know what? I forget who this was. It was some big athlete. I don't think it was Michael Jordan, but someone. See, I'm getting in my sports hat now. I'm thinking sports. But they talked about how they had the worst self-talk. We're talking about, talking disrespectful. And the athlete's mom was like, you would never let anyone talk to you like that. Not your coach, not your teammate, not your classmate, not your friend, not your coworker. Why would you ever allow yourself to talk to you like that? So just a reminder, not just what we allow other people to treat us like, but also how we think and honor ourselves when we're doing well or doing bad. So the first question here for you, Dr. E, is I've caught my teen daughter with a vape twice. She can get a new vape from anyone at school pretty much effortlessly, it seems. She has informed me that she is also smoking marijuana. What can I do? How should I handle this situation?
Woo-wee. All right. So
We're in it.
Well, so there are a couple things, when I hear that. First, the whole vaping. Let's talk about why you use a vape. What's good about a vape? What's not good about a vape? So instead of going into judgment, which is super easy, ask your child, and it's going to probably throw them off, but what's good about a vape? Well, nothing. Well, something's in your mind, something's good, or else you wouldn't be doing it. Because we want to see, are they addicted to this nicotine? Because what we need to understand is vapes, cigarettes, we know what's in them and we know how addictive they are. For vapes, a lot of them are like 20 times the amount of nicotine that's in a single cigarette.
Crazy.
So we want to figure out, is there an addiction problem going on, or is it just, I like to do it because it's cool. So understand the motivation behind it. When I hear marijuana, I also want to know what's good about that. i.e., are you self-medicating because you're super anxious? And if that's the case, how can we find another way to help you with your anxiety? Are you doing it because you want to be cool? And if that's the case, how can we help you feel cool and comfortable and confident with others without using a substance? So the first thing before before judging is get more information. Try to have that conversation. One of the things that I talked about in that video is that problem solving and decision making. What are the pros? What are the cons of this? How can you get what you want from the vape? How can you get that same thing without the vape? So again, if it's the confidence, if it's the fitting in, if it's the helping with the anxiety, how can you get that in other ways? And then together come up with a plan, what's okay, what's not. When you give your child the space to have this conversation, when you ask, and then when you get to the point where your child is telling you, yeah, it's probably not a good thing from you, because eventually that's probably where they're going to get, then you can ask them, okay, so if that's the case, and that's not allowed in this house, you can kind of remind them of rules. You can talk about how it impacts their health, but hopefully they'll come up with that first. Then ask them, so what do you think the consequences should be? Usually their consequences are worse than what you thought the consequences would be. But when they establish the consequences, and if you need to enforce those consequences because you find the vape again, they're much more likely to abide by those consequences.
I feel like I would be so confused if you were my mom and you're like, hey, so what are the good things about marijuana?
Well, I mean, you're not like, hey, let's light up a doobie together, right? You're not like that, but you're like, hey, so help me understand.
Yeah, no, it is.
You know that vaping, we've talked about this before, that it's not okay to do. So I know you're a good person. Help me understand why you're still doing that. What are you getting from it? That is beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, hey, let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's vape together and talk about this.
Yeah. No, I love that approach because I really only see two ways that most parents would handle that. Complete rage, the red zone as we talk about, or I'd rather just not know and kind of go, yeah, ignorance is bliss, but to actually approach it, have a rational conversation, stay out of the red zone, and then talk about it. What's the good? What's the bad? I think that's actually going to be productive and get you somewhere. So I liked that one. Point for you.
Yeah, and using Socratic questioning, asking questions that don't tell them the answer, but lead them to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Okay, next one here, Dr. E. My 13-year-old son is undersized and loves sports, but can't make the team. He keeps trying out for teams, and I'm so proud of this, but he keeps coming up short. I don't know if there was a pun intended there. How can I support him? Is there ever a point where I maybe steer him in a different direction? So this is a great question based on what we're talking about today. So in this situation, I guess,
Right.
what do you jump in?
Because jumping in would be calling the coach, and you need to do this. Oh, forget about that. Why don't you play the clarinet? You know, this is a great opportunity to empathize with what they're going through, to listen. What are they saying to themselves? Oh, I mean, I know once I go through puberty, I'm going to be taller and it's going to be better. That's one of, you know, then you take that. If it's, I'm no good, I'm a loser, I'm never going to be anything, well, then you can address that. But you, again, you can ask questions. So right now you're not making the team. What would you like to do? Maybe you're going to be the manager for the team. Maybe you're going to try another sport. Maybe you're going to find another hobby. But really, again, giving them the time and space and really the grace to let them talk about what they're going through instead of just, oh, no, it's okay, and trying to fix it. And then acknowledge this is tough. This is a tough thing that you're going through. I'm really proud for how you're handling it. What can you do to help yourself feel better? What can you do if it's, you know, I want to play on the team because all my friends. Okay, well, how can you spend time with your friends even though you're not going to be on the team, and help them problem solve that?
Yeah, I
It's-
always find how can you get that same outcome, even if it's not like you're saying earlier with the vaping or a drug or something.
Yeah.
What is the actual thing you're trying to get? Is it relief from stress, anxiety? Is it to look cool, hang out with your friends? No, that's awesome.
But
Lindsay,
again,
you have anything on that?
letting them sit in that discomfort as opposed to trying to fix it is going to be really important, because life throws stuff at us, right? And if your child can learn, okay, this is tough, and I know I can handle it. I may not make the team, and I can do X, Y, and Z. That is a learning that is going to really help them be successful in their lives.
Mm.
Because what's happening a lot, and I referenced, you know, the high rates of suicide in college, and I don't say this as a, like, to scare people, but it's really a wake-up call. When we are doing everything for our children and making it so they don't have any pain, eventually they're going to experience pain, because, you know, I'm the eternal optimist, and yet there's pain in life, right? And so they're going to experience pain if they haven't had that, if they haven't had the experience with you to help support them through that pain and that discomfort. They're not going to be able, they're less likely to be able to handle it, and they're more likely to take drastic measures to not feel the pain, whether it's thinking about ending their life or using substances to numb themselves. We want to make sure that, I'm not saying that, you know, they're comfortable being uncomfortable, but that they've had those experiences and they know they can get through it.
And what can the parent do when they're having the pain and discomfort of seeing their teen be in pain and discomfort? Because that is, I feel like, one of the hardest things that I see parent of, like,
yes.
oh my gosh, I know this is good for him. I know this is good for her. You know, they're going through this little thing right now, but it tears you up inside. So what, just keep reminding yourself, like, this is part of growth. This is what's best for them. This is me allowing them to build that grit and resilience muscle.
Yep. I'll tell you, my little Grace, when she was in middle school, she was her quote best friend, basically ostracized her from the group. And this was a friend who had lost her father, and we had been there through the whole death of her father, super supportive, as you know, and I'll share with people now. You know, Grace's father, my husband, is dying now. He's on a ventilator. And so, and he was at the time. And I just was like, not only is she being horrible to my daughter, but she knows exactly what my daughter's going through with the whole losing of the father thing. And I so badly wanted to jump in and share my perspective, but there wasn't any physical abuse. Grace was safe. And so we really talked, instead of me jumping in, we really talked about, you know, what she was going through, what she chose to take, you know, what steps she chose to take. I did not jump in and try to make things, you know, all better for her, even though I promise you I wanted to with every ounce of my being.
Yeah, that's tough. Ugh, man. Yeah, you want to jump in? I like how you said that. What you said, offer your perspective. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, well, let's blow through these here. The third one here is, do you have any tools or resources or tips for helping me navigate what my kid is seeing on their phone and online?
What could they be saying online that's bad? Sorry, bad joke.
There's nothing bad out there.
Yes, I don't know like what there are apps out there where you can see, you can block certain websites. You can, see what your child's doing. I don't actually know what they are because they're constantly new ones going on, but I would Google, how do I control, what apps are on my child's phone? Also, when it comes to their computer, have them have their computer in the family room.
Mhm.
So you can, you may not see everything, but you're walking by and so you have access to that. Talk about what they're seeing. Talk about what they're seeing that's upsetting for them, or what they're hearing or what they're reading that's upsetting for them. Having an open conversation where they feel like they are not going to be in trouble for talking about what they see or what they, what comes up on their phone is going to be really important, so that they feel like they can trust you.
Mhm.
In video games is such a big thing. You feel the same way about that? Have the video games not be in their room, but out where everyone is?
Yes. I think that having it out in the open will, one, allow you to know, what's going on, two, timing wise, how long are they on it? And three, then they're not on their phones, on their computers at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, which we know a lot of kids are doing, staying up all night, playing these games or on these websites. Nothing good comes from that. And sleep is, I'm going to go into, what I could talk about in terms of the importance of sleep. Your children, until they are older, should not have their phones in their room at night. In my opinion, I very rarely am prescriptive, but I'm going to say this, and they shouldn't have their computers in the room and their iPads in the room either, until they get to a certain point where, and what that point is going to vary from child to child, but until they can better control how they're using it.
Yeah, it's like with cigarettes, it's the Surgeon General warning, right? But before it was, they're literally doing marketing to kids to do the smoking. Do you feel like that's what it will be with social media and their phone 10 years from now, 15 years from now? We'll look back at this time and be like, that was insane. That was insane that people could just have 24 access and have their mind running and influenced by their peers and the world and the internet online. Do you have any?
I hope so. I will say I'm
Yeah.
seeing more and more that kids are saying, I'm tired of the social media. And so they're, either taking a holiday or putting limits on themselves or with the help of their parents. So I think more and more people are realizing this is not helpful.
Yeah.
And again, talk about, you don't want to keep the phone and the computer until, for example, they go to college and then be like, here you go. You want to have that time frame when they are at home where they do have it, have access to it 24/7, but hopefully by then you have helped them cultivate some habits of how much time they're on it and what they're looking at.
Next up, Dr. E, we're on a roll today. I like it. We're just getting through these. It's my teen daughter is cutting herself and has tried to OD on pills. What I am trying to figure out is, at what point is she trying to get attention, and at what point do you need to take a threat or action more seriously?
I would always take it seriously. Always. I would also offer a lot of empathy. So when someone cuts, and the last stat I saw was 17% of teens are cutting. My belief is that that's much higher. Ask questions about it. If you feel like it may be attention, then ask yourself, how can I give my teen attention that isn't centered around addressing her cutting and addressing her overdose? One thing to consider is love languages. How does your child receive love and give love? If they are quality time, for example, then how can you give them quality time without it being about ODing and cutting, right? So if you think it's a call for attention, how can you give your child attention in other ways? And so being more proactive on that may help reduce some of that other stuff. I would always take that seriously, because even if they are just trying to get attention, if they overdose and they, take too much and they're gone, you can't do anything about it. So to me, that sounds like, yes, they need some help, have someone to talk to, have someone to give them real skills. So talk with it, have them talk to a therapist. And also, how can you give them the love and attention that maybe they're asking for in ways that are not dependent on addressing, talking about the cutting and the drug use.
So question on this one.
Yeah.
If a kid takes a bunch of pills and immediately calls the suicide hotline to have them come rescue them, are they trying to kill themselves, or because this is a situation that's happened,
They are in
our orbit.
a place of severe distress, and
Mhm.
whether they actually want to die or not, I don't think even matters. What we need to do is address their severe distress and their coping skills.
Hmm.
It's not a time to say, well, you called 911, right? Or the suicide hotline right after. So not a big deal. They're screaming for help. Let's give them help.
Yeah. Lindsay, I felt like I saw you wanting to chime in there. Did you have something?
Oh, I just think there's a lot to be said for safety planning. I mean, I talk to kids every day, all the time, and a lot of them have walked through this at one point in time or another. And safety planning. What does it look like for, when they start down a downhill spiral? What are the things that immediately start to make you feel good? What's the next step if that doesn't work? What's the next step if that doesn't work? All the way to ask for help and everywhere in between. And I find personally that most teens are more than willing to set up some sort of safety plan. They're like, oh, and ideas for ways that I could keep myself safe without having to ask for help, I'm in. They would much rather have those things set up in play than feel like they either have no help or they have to create a big deal, because that's what most of them feel like, right? I'm down and I'm out and I have no way to fix this.
Yep.
And I have to either create a huge ordeal, which I don't want to do, or I have to try and solve it on my own. And then you have things like cutting or not eating or whatever else that's that grasp at control. Safety planning gives them a little bit of that control back so that they feel like, okay, I have things I can try to help myself through this productively. And then I can go to someone I trust, whether that's your parent or whether it's the doctor or whether it's a friend first. All those steps can be in a safety plan. But I think that's also a trust building exercise between teen and parent to be able to say, hey, I've got this idea. Let's sit down, let's do this and create this for you. You have control over this. I'm supporting you in it. I think that's really just a really important part. So.
And also, I agree with all that.
Yeah, that was great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also as a parent, making sure your child knows if you're upset, you can come talk to me. You don't need to escalate. You don't need to be here to come talk to me. You can just come say, I'm having a tough day. And, we can process through that, or we can spend time, or we can go for a walk. We can then address that. You don't have to wait until you're at this, place of, hurting yourself in order to get some support from me.
Yeah.
I feel like we get here kind of every week. There's a couple common themes, and one of them, and we've always heard it said, the most important thing in a relationship is communication. And that's what you guys are all saying on all these things. It's like, you got to talk it through, but do it this way and be more approachable and these different things. What about the parents whose kids just don't want to talk to them? They're in that moody teenage angst, and they don't want to, everything mom and dad says is to roll their eyes. How can a parent in that situation kind of break down that wall so that they can have that communication and relationship back when they have a teenager that just isn't trying to hear or talk to them or share about their day and all those different types of things?
Find a place where you can relate. So, even if it's watching a show together, you have that time, you can maybe have a conversation about the show, about, oh, they had pizza. Do you like pizza? You can kind of pull out maybe a question or two, but it's about communicating, but on a deeper level, it's about trusting. And so getting to that level where your child trusts you, and trust you to have conversations. And sometimes that can take some, a bit, whether trust has been lost for a specific reason, or it's just, they became a teenager and the old ways of interacting aren't working. And so you haven't implemented some new ones, but looking at ways that you can relate. You can spend time, going for a walk, walking the dog, making a meal together, having a meal together, going to get ice cream. I mean, my daughters, they can be completely upset with me. They can be stressed out they're ice cream lovers. If I'm like, let's go to Sweets, which is our local homemade ice cream, it doesn't matter what's going on. They'll do it. So finding that place where maybe it's not, hey, how was your day? And sit down and hear about, like, my oldest, who likes to go through every single class and tell me every single class that she had and what she did. That's great. Not all kids are like that, but finding some common ground to kind of start or restart that relationship.
Gotcha. So show them and respect them that you care about them through spending time with them, doing the things that they like, whether it's watching a movie, doing something that you're not into, throwing the ball around. And when that time comes, when they do want to have that conversation, when it is something important, you'll have been there enough and spent that time that they'll be willing to open up to you.
Yeah. And part of that is not making negative comments about their behavior.
Negative reinforcement.
Because if you're constantly saying, oh, stop your eye rolling, or, oh, you're doing that again, or I just had a client who consistently tells their child that they're lazy. That's not a message we want to be giving our children. If they're not doing what you want them to do, calling them a name, especially a label where they start to internalize it, is probably not the best approach. So as a parent, super challenging. How can you remain neutral? As long as, they're not speaking in a disrespectful way, but the eye rolling and stuff, don't get sucked into that. When you see that, if you see that, think to yourself, that's a teenager. You might even think, yeah, I did that to my parents too, but don't get sucked into it, because you get sucked into it, then you make negative comments and you get in the red zone, and then you become someone you don't want to become. Then your child's going to say in their mind, see, I can't trust them, or see, they are horrible, or see, whatever. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So try to remain neutral. If you have to go into the other room and scream into a pillow, as long as your child doesn't hear, that's fine. But make sure that you try to remain as open and positive as you can, because that's gonna, the more you put down your child, the more it's just fuel for your child to not want to spend time with you.
Gotcha. I'm definitely putting a pin in that one. I know that I'm going to get sucked in for some eye rolling. There will be no eye rolling in this house. So I'm going to try to remember this when that comes up in my life.
We'll remind you.
We're over time. I want to ask one last quick one here, and then we'll wrap it up and let you get out of your office on a Sunday here.
I'm going to Mexico. I'm speaking in Mexico tomorrow, so you can't really feel all that badly for me. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now I take it back. We're doing 2 more hours. This one is, how can I help my son and daughter, both teens, build more confidence so that they aren't a follower, but turn into leaders? They both care, and then all capitals, way too much what their peers think about them. So helping them be leaders, confident, and not followers.
Oh, did you want me to do this one or Lindsay?
Either or. I know you had a dramatic pause.
It's a tough one. You don't want to force anything, but you can start to ask the questions. But what I would recommend is that you find an area where your child can be a leader. You and your child find an area where they can be a leader. What could that mean? It may mean they have a job where their friends aren't. It may be that they volunteer. I keep pointing over to I'm very kinesthetic memory. I just had a client today who's struggling with self-confidence. And I asked them, tell me about a time you were confident. And they started telling me about a time when they went to a summer camp. It was a camp, overnight camp for kiddos with special needs. And they were kind of paired up with one particular kiddo for the entire week. Not once did they overly analyze, how other people were viewing them or anything like that. They were so confident because they were focused on serving and helping this person, and they were really excited about it. So helping your child together figure out, where is an area where you could lead. Maybe it's not with your friends right now. You'll develop that skill from this, but again, is it a job? Is it a volunteer opportunity? Is it a hobby? Something like that, where they can excel and they can take on either leadership or doing some stuff on their own. Once they get the confidence there, it's going to be a lot easier to bring it into other areas.
I've worked with this program a few years ago, and their whole thing was about teaching kids the rules of games at recess, because that's where all the fights start and a lot of the problems happen. And it was elementary age kids. And what they would do is they would take some of those kids that were maybe sometimes the outcast or kids that were having a hard time, and they would let them be the leader. They were the ones that got to teach the different games and the rules for everything that they were playing, the different sports, and the turnarounds that they had with those kids, because all of a sudden they had a sense of purpose. Other kids looked up to them and they got to lead. So I feel like that makes sense of everything you just said with why these kids had those kinds of results, of find those areas where they are successful, where they can look at themselves in a positive light and lean into that.
Yeah.
I had, when my oldest was in fifth grade, she was feeling a little uncomfortable socially. And I talked to her teacher about it, didn't intervene and made things happen, but just said, you know, this is happening. And so the teacher created this club where he took three kiddos who were kind of feeling socially awkward, and they were in charge of the bulletin board. And so once a week, these three kids would be in charge of putting something up on the bulletin board. I'm telling you, it's not why my daughter's confident now, but it certainly contributed to that, because she had a sense of purpose. She had meeting, she had this connection with these other people who she wouldn't have been necessarily interacting with. And that was that springboard. And then there was the carryover. So realize that even if you have this one area where you're helping them, once they develop that confidence, there's likely to be some carryover. And if not, you can have that conversation. Hey, I noticed that you're really confident doing X, Y, and Z. You know, as I always say, what are the ingredients that go into that? Why are why is that working there? How can you bring it into the classroom with your friends, the sports field, whatever it is?
So good. I love it. Yay. Well, we've gone over time here. I just want to thank you guys both for being so generous with your time, as always. You shared at the beginning, Dr. E, of some of those stats with kids with self-harm when they're going to college, and the cutting. And, it is a scary time, and it is a time that parents really have to step up to the plate. And so I'm so thankful that you're here in the world, both of you, making a difference. And we sometimes focus on the negative, but, I guess it is the start of a new year, 2023. And there is so much good happening too. And we see it with the kids that we're working with, and just the people around us as well. And so I just want to not always have it be like, oh, kids are struggling with this, that, and the other thing, because there's so many amazing breakthroughs and turnarounds that will just absolutely light up your face with a smile and just make your heart just be so full of life and happiness. So I am thankful for you guys, and I know my life is so much better because you two are in it. Have so much fun in Mexico, Dr. E. I hope you'll post some of the action from your gig down there. Who are you speaking to? Any
YPO.
Is it a
Young
It is
Presidents.
YPO. Okay, awesome. Yay, that's going to be so fun. And again, for anyone who wants more on Dr. E, she's easy to find online. ElizabethLombardo.com, Elevive.com, Google search, YouTube. She's all over the place. And if you want to have a conversation with Lindsay and I, you can always go to theattitudeadvantage.com and book a 15-minute call, and we can talk with you there more about what's going on with your team. That's it. We'll see you guys next month.
Thanks everyone for being on the call. It says so much about the parents being on the call. So yay.
Yay.
All
Bye,
right, take
everybody.
care. Bye.
Adios.
Bye, guys.